Update 1. 51M. Gave 15 years to a company that replaced me with a younger guy's smile while I was burying my son and losing my wife. Here's how I built something better. I wasn't going to write this. A friend talked me into it after I told her the whole story over dinner last month, and she just sat there with her fork halfway to her mouth and said, "You need to put this somewhere." So here it is. Long post. Get comfortable. My name's Gary. I'm 51. For 15 years, I was a senior operations manager at a regional logistics and freight company. I'm going to call it Houston Freight, not the real name, because some of this is still working its way through arbitration, and my lawyer would have a heart attack if I named names. We move freight across 4 states. Trucks, warehouses, scheduling, vendor contracts, client accounts. If it touched the operational side of that business, it ran through me at some point. I started there at 36, came in as a regional coordinator, and within 4 years I was running the whole operations division. I built systems from scratch. When I started, dispatch was being done on a whiteboard and a fax machine. I'm not exaggerating. By the time I was done, we had a scheduling system I designed with an outside developer that cut idle truck time by almost 30%. I personally negotiated 3 of our 5 biggest client contracts. I trained 11 dispatchers who are still there, or were, last I checked. I missed 2 of my own birthdays because of peak season freight crunches, and I didn't even resent it because I believed in the place. I thought of it as mine, in the way you think of something you built with your hands as yours, even when your name isn't on the deed. I tell you all this not to brag. I tell you this because it matters for what comes later, for you to understand exactly how much I knew, exactly how load-bearing I was, so that what happened makes sense of something other than just bad luck. 3 years ago, my son Caleb got sick. I'm not going to go into the details of that. Some things you don't put on the internet, even anonymously, even years later. What I'll say is that it was a kind of illness that takes a long time and gives you false hope more than once before it takes everything. He was 11. We fought it for 14 months. He died on a Tuesday in October, in a hospital room I will never fully leave even though I haven't been back inside it in 3 years. I went back to work 12 days after the funeral. I want to be clear that nobody made me. My boss at the time, a regional VP named Doug who since retired, told me to take as long as I needed, but I didn't know what else to do with myself. Work was the only place where I still knew what I was supposed to be doing with my hands and my brain. Grief doesn't come with an instruction manual, but a freight schedule does, and I needed an instruction manual more than I needed anything else that year. My wife, Renee, needed something different. She needed me, and I wasn't there, not really, even when I was standing in the same kitchen as her. I was a body going through motions. I look back now and I can see exactly what was happening to our marriage in real time, and at the time I could see almost none of it. That's the strange thing about grief. It makes you both hyper-aware and completely blind, depending on what you're looking at. About 8 months after Caleb died, I started noticing Renee was distant in a specific way. Not sad distant, busy distant. New gym schedule. New friend from book club. She never introduced me to by his actual full name, just Steve from book club. Phone always face down. I noticed that the way you notice whether present, undeniable, but not something I had the bandwidth to investigate. I was barely keeping my own head above water. I didn't have the energy left to play detective in my own home. I want to be honest about that, because there's no version of this story where I was some Eli husband piecing together clues. I was checked out. I was surviving one shift at a time, and so was she, and we were surviving in different directions, away from each other instead of toward. She told me about Steve herself, eventually, about 10 months after Caleb passed. She didn't sit me down with a speech. She just said it one night while we were doing dishes, completely flat, like she was telling me she'd used the last of the milk. She said she didn't know how to be married to a ghost anymore, that I died in that hospital room too, just not all the way, and she couldn't keep loving the 15% of me that came home every night. She said she was sorry. She said she still loved me, in some form, but that she needed to feel like she was alive, and she didn't feel alive standing next to me anymore. I didn't even fight it. That's the part that still surprises people when I tell this story. I just nodded. I think some part of me agreed with her. We separated within the month, divorced within the year. No big court battle. There wasn't much to fight over, and neither of us had the stomach for cruelty on top of everything else. We just quietly closed the book. I don't think about her with anger. I think about her sometimes with a kind of sad respect, the way you think about someone who told you a hard truth instead of a comfortable lie. She remarried about a year ago. I heard it from a mutual friend. I felt a strange, complicated nothing about it, which I think is actually a kind of peace, even though it doesn't feel like the peace you'd expect. So that's where I was, professionally and personally, 3 years ago, a grieving father, a newly single man. And I want to stress this, still showing up every single day and running operations at Houston like my life depended on it, because in a very real way, it did. Work was the scaffolding holding up a building that had lost its frame. This is where Tyler comes in.